You wake up to a $1,000 electric bill and wonder if you've been secretly running a crypto mining operation in your sleep. That was me last month, standing in my kitchen in fuzzy slippers, staring at a bill high enough to power a small towner, as I'd soon discover, one HOA president's deluxe golf cart. My quiet retirement dream home was about to become the battleground for the pettiest, most electrified suburban war in history. At the heart of it was Susan, the kind of HOA tyrant who thought the acronym stood for her omnipotent authority. What started as a bizarre power drain turned into a chance for revenge, fueled by a 3-second timer, a touch of chaos, and a whole lot of neighborly justice. I bought this house for a peaceful life after 25 years as an electrical engineer for defense systems. I envisioned a hammock, a good whiskey, and maybe some woodworking in my shed. The neighborhood seemed idyllic, a charming cul-de-sac with uniform lawns and perfectly aligned mailboxes. But paradise came with a catch: Susan. She greeted me on day one with a pamphlet on grass height rules and a clipboard of HOA policies. I smiled, nodded, and assumed she'd fade away. Big mistake. Within a week, I got 3 notices, one for leaving my trash cans out 35 minutes past pickup, another for the wrong shade of beige on my garage trim, and a third for excessive whistling while mowing. That last one wasn't even a rule. Susan just didn't like my attempt at classic rock. I tried to play nice, but by month 2, things got weird. My electric bill doubled. I wasn't running a hot tub or a tanning bed, just smart thermostats, LED bulbs, and solar panels. It was impossible. I called the utility company, and a guy named Jake, who sounded like he was napping, checked my usage. "Unless you've got a secret industrial heater, something's off," he said. The numbers showed a spike every night between 2 o'clock and 4 a.m., traced to my shed. Nothing was plugged in there except a workbench light and an old mini fridge holding nothing but soda. Faulty wiring, maybe. I set up a motion-triggered HD security camera linked to my home server. At 2:13 a.m., the alert pinged. I opened the feed and nearly dropped my tablet. There was Susan, in a bathrobe and slippers, sneaking into my backyard like she owned it. She entered my shed, flicked on the light, rolled out an extension cord, and plugged in her shiny black golf cart with chrome trim and a license plate reading Queen 1. She even hummed as she muttered, "Free juice is the best juice," before waddling home. The HOA president was stealing my electricity, treating my shed like a public charging station. The next morning, I confronted her on her pristine lawn, where she was sweeping leaves with a hand broom. "Hey, Susan, fun night?" I asked calmly. She squinted. "I beg your pardon?" I mentioned the shed light and my footage of a figure with her hairstyle plugging in a golf cart. Her face paled, then twisted. "That's not your outlet," she snapped. "It's behind the property line common area." I corrected her. "It's in my shed, 22 feet into my lot." I checked the HOA map. She huffed. "You shouldn't be so selfish with your power. It's just a golf cart." I was stunned she thought I was the problem. An hour later, an HOA email arrived. Subject: complaint of harassment. Susan claimed I'd aggressively confronted her with threats, expressing deep concern for her safety. I was warned not to engage without HOA supervision. Her audacity was almost funny, but I didn't sleep that night, not from anger, but from inspiration. I was done with her smug theft. If she wanted electricity, she'd get it 3 seconds at a time. I started digging into the HOA's power structure. Susan had been president for 7 years, with no contested elections. Neighbors who'd considered running faced sudden citations, one for a non-compliant mailbox, another for suspicious lawn flamingos. The HOA rules were Susan's weapon, including a clause allowing temporary entry to sheds for maintenance observation, added the year she got her golf cart. Worse, her complaint against me triggered a $25 daily fine for improper storage of electrical fixtures, my shed's outlet. My lawyer friend laughed. "You've got a rogue HOA dictator. Go full petty." In my garage, I built my revenge: a Raspberry Pi, a relay switch, a surge protector, and a timer module, housed in a weatherproof casing disguised as a power strip. It allowed exactly 3 seconds of power before cutting off, resetting after 2 hours to block retries. A delay buffer locked it out if she unplugged and replugged. It wouldn't damage her car, just tease her with a flicker of hope. I installed it in the shed, which Susan never locked after her thefts, and waited. At 2:15 a.m., my camera caught her sneaking in, plugging in her cart, and smirking as the charging light blinked. 3 seconds later, it died. The next morning, I sipped coffee and watched her try to start the cart. Nothing. She cursed, checked the cord, and stormed off. By afternoon, she returned with a handyman, pointing at my shed. He tested the voltage, scratched his head, and left her fuming. That evening, an HOA email accused me of tampering with shared utility access, demanding a statement or threatening higher fines and a lien. Susan was panicking. For 3 nights, my device worked perfectly. Susan got her 3-second charge, just enough to light up her cart before it died. Each morning, her frustration grew. On day 4, she brought an electrician, Carl, who looked like he'd lost a bet. They poked around, but my setup was clean voltage read normal, just not long enough to charge. Susan argued with Carl, then stormed off. That night, I tweaked the timer to give 1 second of power every 15 minutes, making her cart groan like it was barely alive. The next morning, Susan knocked, armed with HOA bylaws and a blurry photo of her cart's sagging cord, claiming it proved I was tampering. "That's just a SAD cable," I said. She declared she'd submitted it to the board. That afternoon, a letter arrived, accusing me of malicious interference and naming Ron, Susan's board ally, as the inspector. I upped the ante. I added a Wi-Fi module to my device, letting me control it remotely, and programmed a fake charging cycle to trick her cart's LED indicators into showing progress before dying. That night, Susan plugged in, saw the light, and left. 10 minutes later, I cut the power. The next morning, her cart died 30 feet down her driveway. She pushed it, sweating and cursing, as neighbors watched, some giggling. A photo of her stalled cart hit the community bulletin board, captioned "Wattage Royalty." Another neighbor photoshopped flames onto it, calling it the burnout. Susan was humiliated. Then, at 2:30 a.m., my sensors pinged. Susan, with a flashlight, gloves, and bolt cutters, was at my exterior electrical panella dummy I'd installed months ago. She cut a cable, sparks flew, and she yelped, dropping the flashlight and fleeing. My real panel, locked in the basement, was untouched. I printed timestamped photos and sent them to my lawyer friend. By noon, Susan got a cease and desist. By 3 p.m., a restraining order barred her from my property. The next day, it was taped to her door for all to see. The restraining order triggered an HOA review. A county clerk friend uncovered that Susan's temporary access rule was an unratified amendment legally void. An auditor, Vanessa, exposed years of Susan's unapproved bylaws, misappropriated funds, and bogus citations. Vanessa silenced Susan's interruptions. "You've had 7 years to talk. It's someone else's turn." All Susan's fines were nullified, and she was suspended from the HOA pending legal review. The neighborhood buzz neighbors high-fived, hosted barbecues, and mowed, LOL, into Susan's overgrown lawn. An emergency election ousted Susan's cronies. I helped digitize ballots and bylaws for transparency. A new rule, the Susan Clause, allowed recalls of abusive board members. A neighbor gave me a plaque for outstanding service in the battle for common sense. I hadn't planned to be a hero just to stop a thief. But with patience, logic, and a well-timed glitter bomb left on a fake outlet labeled free charging, I helped into suburban tyranny. Susan's house went up for sale, her golf cart gathered dust, and the neighborhood breathed easier. 3 seconds of electricity at a time, and I'd flipped the power back to the people.